Hello, everybody, to the Grants Ad Hoc Committee of February 13th, 2024. We've taken attendance, noting that all members of the committee are in attendance. Can I get a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda? Councillor Kyle, Councillor Garneau, all those in favor? All opposed? Carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interests? Seeing none, we'll move on. No delegations, petitions, or presentations. Can I get a mover and seconder for the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting? Councillor Miller, Councillor Pierce. All those in favor? All opposed? Carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move on to 7.1 RPT-0175-24 2024 Community Grants Program Application Form and Eligibility Criteria. Heather Boyd.
Okay, through the chair, thank you everyone. Don't have a big presentation on this today. We have gone through and looked at eligibility criteria that we use, that the Federation, the Foundation uses, that the city and some other municipalities use. What I've recommended we put forward is closely aligned with how we do things now. I did note a few other options that we could look at including, but I would suggest that before we do any of those, we have some discussion about them, because some of them, there's some reasons we didn't put them in specifically. So anyways, I will just leave it to questions at this point. The only thing I would note is that in terms of the eligibility, we mentioned registered charity, not-for-profit organization, and we would also be including a non-profit organization, just to try to capture both those groups that have the actual registered and incorporated numbers and some of the community groups that have historically got grants from us.
Any questions to report? Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, a couple comments and a couple questions, if I could. First of all, I love the way it starts off, because it says to be eligible for grant funding, an organization must, in capital letters, because I know that's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time, that if you're going to come to us for a donation, at least take the time to fill out all the required fields. So that's fantastic. And it even it specifies in there what they need to complete. So to me, there's no excuse for it. If they don't complete it, then sorry about their luck, so to speak. Moving down to, I guess it's page 10 of our report, when it talks about next steps. It says upon ratification of February, the grant application window would be announced and promoted by the Brant County Brant Community Foundation, County Health, including direct contact with 2023 recipients. Have we practiced that in the past, of reaching out to those who received donations in prior years?
Heather Mifflin, do you know if Vanessa's done that in the past? I think we have, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Yes, through the chair, we have reached out in the past.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm for that or against that, because we want to kind of let everybody, of course, let everybody have the opportunity, but in the back of my mind, those that have already received may go to the back of the bus. I don't know how I feel about that, but I was just curious if we've done that in the past, so I appreciate that. And then if we go down to, again, just another comment where it states late applications will not be accepted. I think that's perfect. Again, we need to be stern with these. One other question I had, I just got to find the page, bear with me. Okay, so when it gets into the questions that they fill out, I guess it's on page 18 of the report. It talks about, at the very last one, it says, do other organizations offer the same or similar services? What makes your program unique? Was that on our old form? Because I like that question. I think I like that. I don't recall seeing it before. Was it on there before?
No, it was not. It was one that I mined out through things and thought that would be appropriate to help the foundation with their discussion.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I like that. So thank you for putting that on. And I think I had one more. If I could, Mr. Chair, bear with me. I just got to find it. Where was it? Nope, maybe that's it. So I like it. Again, it's clear, it's concise. It's to me, it would be, if I'm a charity or anybody going for a donation, it would be very easy to fill out. We're not asking for a lot of information, but I like the fact, and I'm hoping the fact that Brant Community Foundation kind of goes the same way. If they don't fill it out, then sorry. I know there's a back and forth to maybe go back to them once and say, hey, you know what, you didn't fill it all out, maybe. But to me, we can't. How can I word this? We can't be babysitting them to fill out the forms for them, in essence. So I love what you've done here, and I support it. Thank you.
Mayor Bailey.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Heather, just I have a little bit of a concern just because I had a meeting with the people from the Arnold Anderson Foundation, and they were refused this year by the Brant Community Foundation, which history shows that back in the day, Jean Anderson was on the Brant Community Foundation and chaired it for many years. In fact, she's the one that brought me into the foundation, and now Joanne Lewis isn't there, and now Nancy Sherritt's not there. It's all brand new people there at the foundation, and I just don't know now what happens to groups like the Arnold Anderson Foundation that always counted on the money from the foundation, which isn't our business, why they got refused, of course. But now they're going to be handling our asks too, and we always have supported the Arnold Anderson Foundation. So I'm just not sure whether whether that's just the way of the world. That's just what happens. People move and people aren't familiar. But the people right now at the foundation don't know anything about Arnold Anderson or who he was or why we support him. But the entire foundation is based on a community grant and a city and a county grant for the Arnold Anderson Foundation. And what they do, just in case you don't know what they do, they pay for kids to play sports. So they were refused this year already. And I'm just concerned about our grant. If those same people are going to see the Arnold Anderson Foundation come forward again from the county, whether they've disqualified them for some reason, because they've been getting funding for 12 years nonstop, very much like Lucy Marco, who gets $10,000 every year from the city and the county. And last year, because of things we did, she only got $4,500. So I'm just wondering how we're going to, whether when the foundation says no to someone, will that automatically mean they'll say no on our behalf? Just something that I couldn't answer when I was asked.
And I don't know the circumstances of that application, but I have developed a pretty good relationship with the people at the foundation. So I'm happy to talk with them and see off the record whether there was like an actual eligibility criteria they didn't meet, or if it was something more generic that came through. We can have that discussion.
Yeah, and just a secondary, and also if you could speak to about Lucy Marco too, for the same reasoning. Without us, without the city and the county, Lucy is out of business.
Yeah, and I know Lucy has worked with the foundation on applications before, and if she's been getting money from the city through that, then I don't expect that there'll be a problem, but I can talk to them as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions to the report itself? Councillor Miller.
One comment and two questions, Mr. Chair. I think it's good that you're going to have a follow-up report, sounds like, before we go into budget 2025, yes? On how this goes.
Yep, so we did talk about, we are going to be reviewing the ongoing grants. So that's one task for this committee later this year. And then, yeah, once we get through the process and see, the fallout, and I'm sure there'll be some groups that'll be upset and some groups that'll be happy with the new process, but we'll collect all that and we'll do a summary report back to committee.
Okay. I'm just wondering how would we deal with, and I'll give you an example, is Burford Minor Hockey. They submitted their application. So they say, And I know there's a way to track it. You mentioned with the numbers, but say it, for whatever reason it falls through the cracks. It's post March 31st, which is the application window. How would we deal with that?
I guess it partly depends on what happens with it, right? I've tried in the new application form to be very clear about, like if they should be receiving an application number, which means that we have it, it's in hand, it's all good. And I've said on this, if they don't get that, that application number, they should follow up with staff, because that we did have that issue last year, and some groups had said that they had made a submission and we didn't have it on our records, and it was back and forth. How we deal with applications outside of the grant process, for whatever reason they come outside, that's something council's going to have to decide, because it'll be the same thing. Like any groups come with big funding requests at odd times of the years, and if groups start coming forward with smaller requests, we'll have to make a decision as to whether we accept those, whether we move them on to the next year, what kind of precedents we're setting when we get into that. But I would suspect that once we get through this process once, part of that summary report, maybe we'll talk about how we deal with things that come up, whether it's just, and there might be a situation where administratively there's just been an error and a group's application didn't get considered. So is that a different situation? We haven't got that far into the process yet.
Okay. Yeah, and that would be my thought. They would come here or send a letter or whatever, request it, and then we deal with it. And hope we have enough surplus for the year end to deal with it, to pay for it. Another question is, we have 0.5% of our operating grants set aside. It's oversubscribed. I think in the past we would adjust them. Any thoughts on how would Brant Community Foundation deal with that?
So they would be allocating how we've done it the last couple of years, based on they have the pot of money. The amount that we approve in the budget is the amount that they can spend and or allocate. Sorry, they're not spending any money, but the amount they can allocate, and they would be working towards that number. So they have their own processes for it. I don't think they usually do like we did, where we just kind of like divided everybody's by 0.3 to make it all fit in the number. But they go through them one by one, and this one gets more and this one gets less, and that's part of their deliberations. They wouldn't go over. They wouldn't oversubscribe us. They wouldn't come back and say we approved 325,000 in grants.
But okay. At this point, though, through Mr. Chair, we don't know their processes. It sounds like you say, if I were doing it, I would just say, okay, we're oversubscribed by 10%, so everybody gets. I know the math isn't exact, but they would.
I don't believe they do it that way. They do it on like. They look a lot more closely at the merits of the application and the use of the money and all that. They look at them in a lot more depth than we as staff in our technical review did. So they would be working through the overall allocations based on that. And some groups may get none. Some groups may get 10% of what they asked for. Some groups may get 100% of what they asked for.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions to the report? Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm more of a comment. I'm glad Councillor Pierce had asked about the next steps, because that was something that had jumped out to me as well. I'm not sure I would necessarily, I guess it kind of comes back to the whole philosophy on what is a grant. I don't know that I would necessarily make it a to-do to reach out to all of the past recipients of grants. I think part of a grant is that you find out about it, you say, hey, we have this project that's going on, we put in for some money and see if we can get it. We shouldn't be having groups necessarily that are counting on grant money to keep their lights on necessarily. So I don't know. I would rather see broad communication out to the entire community that we have these grants available and that they can put in an application if they've got something that warrants the money. But I think that would also help to Councillor Miller's points about oversubscribed, more people asking for money than we have money for. If we are taking a more conscious effort to really give that money to the groups that are in need of that for that particular cause.
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions that have come up through this, and yeah, I'm definitely on the same page as Jen on that one there. I think it's, we do well at communicating the fact that these grants are there, and I don't know if it would happen or not, but part of my brain is thinking that, okay, so I got money last year, and then, not that I forgot about it, but all of a sudden I get a phone call, hey, you received money last year, we're going back on. It's like, ooh, I might just find something to submit an application for. But anyway, we can kind of discuss that after. So two things that come up in the questioning. When the mayor was talking about, for the Arnold Anderson Foundation, for example, that, they didn't get it there, and would it affect us here? I just want to be clear that with the action we're taking here of in essence, having Grant Community Foundation do this process, it's their call, right? Like we're not involved in any of whatever they decide, correct?
Correct. That was the goal of moving towards this, so they could do a more complete review of the applications than just the financials and the strict yes or no's.
Okay, good. Yeah, because where I was going with that, if it comes back that we could go to them and say, well, I think we should do this one. I think maybe that one should have got it or whatever. Then we might as well just continue to do it ourselves, right? So if we're gonna do this, I'm in support of doing it all the way. And just getting back to what Councilor Miller was saying there in regards to the issue we had last year with somebody saying they submitted one and didn't. Like, again, the way that this thing is worded and laid out here, it's bolded. It says after you submit your grants application, you'll get a number. If you don't get it in 2 days, contact us. So to me, I look at that in the sense of, hypothetically, let's say the cutoff is April 1st. So if I'm putting this thing on March 30th, then that's my own bad for waiting so long to do it. There might be the odd one that didn't know till then, but I think as a rule, most people are aware it's there because we communicated early. So again, if they don't get something in 2 days and it's written right there for them to contact us and they don't, that's too bad. But no, like I say, the way that this is laid out is perfect.
Are there any other questions to the report? If not, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Mayor Bailey, Councillor Pierce. Is there any discussion on the motion or any appetite for amending the eligibility criteria? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? All opposed? That is carried. Moving on, we have no communications. We have no other business. We have no in camera, so we will look for adjournment. We will adjourn.